Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to my personal 100th live stream here on Chicago Corner under Hard Lens Media in Chicago. I'm your host, Jerry Vasilatos. Very, very excited to have you all join us tonight for my 100th live stream. We've got a lot to talk about this evening. I've done a few upgrades to the show, which I hope you all enjoy and appreciate. In the meantime, I want to welcome you all as we begin our efforts to present and vet third-party candidates here in Illinois and Chicago. We talk about this all the time in our stories. We don't want to be the channel that's always complaining. We want to be the channel that's also looking for solutions and candidates that are offering those solutions. So tonight, I would like to, first of all, quickly introduce my co-hosts before we bring our guest on, Mr. Kit Cabello.
Cheers and salutations, everyone. So glad to be here for the 100th live stream of Chicago Corner. It wasn't too long ago. Chicago Corner used to be a segment for Hard Lens Media, and now it's its own YouTube channel.
You guys have been here much longer. It's just my 100th live stream as a host. It just occurred to me like last week as I was thinking of how many shows I've done, because I joined the channel last year around this time and I went through and I added up the shows and I'm like, oh my God, I've personally done 99 of these, even though there's probably like 100 more or so. But I thought it might be a nice way to just mark the time.
99 is a good number. 99 is a good number, but 100?
Right. Also, Mr. Daniel Lepker.
Hello, good to be here. I'm excited. No, I think that it's a big milestone to do 100 because it takes a lot longer to do 1,000.
Absolutely. And let's go on to that next 1,000. And now joining us is our very special guest, Illinois Green Party candidate for Illinois 85th State House, Anna Schiefelbein. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I know that she's going to correct me. Anna, how do we pronounce your last name?
It's 3 sounds. Schiefelbein.
Schiefelbein. My apologies. I'm Vasilatos. People mangle it all the time. I understand sometimes we need to be able to let people know how to pronounce it so they remember from there on. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. In your 100th episode, you didn't tell me that. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's a great way to mark the 100th live stream for myself and share with our audience who we feel will be a valuable candidate to look to and talk to about your platform as a representative of the Illinois Green Party. So we met Anna last year at the Chicago March for Medicare for All. And we spoke briefly, and Kit told me that you had expressed an interest in coming on the show, which is terrific, as we want to kind of enter this new campaign season, presenting alternative candidates that will hopefully shake up the system. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, introduce yourself, and what inspired you to throw your hat in the race as a Green Party candidate for the State House seat?
Yeah, sure. Well, over 20 years ago, I was an activist in college at Northern Illinois University. Very anti-corporate, big corporation, very anti-nuclear, and very much anti-war as well. And throughout my journey, I've done plenty of rallies and protests, and I was with the Democrat Party in DuPage for over 12 years, ran twice with them, but I just couldn't stand behind the leadership that didn't want the same values I did. I want to make sure we have clean air and clean water, and I don't want anything to stop that, and I just didn't feel that was the right party for me. So I looked around for a while, and I finally came across the Illinois Green Party, and it was home to me ever from day one. And it's like, these are the people that I've been looking for. These are the progressives, the reasonable people that want basic things: healthcare, workers' rights, ban on fracking, and not taking that away 5 seconds later. Like really mean
Following through.
Really mean what we want. So and getting and being a party, I think, is really special too, because there's lots of groups out there that are saying the same message. They're not a party. They're not challenging the status quo. For a little bit more about me as my background, I'm a mom of 2 boys, 9 and 10. And when I look at them and I ask them clean water, they're like, yeah, of course. It's like, no, of course we should do it. So they're so innocent about it. And so I want to make sure that I do everything that I can as a mom, as a good citizen of this globe, to make sure that we get what we need.
So while you were inside I'm sure as many candidates that run as Dems, they feel that they can maybe help reform or change the party from within. Did you actually experience, I don't know, direct resistance, or were people open-minded regarding many of the proposals that we all think the Democrats should be fighting for, but sadly kind of abandon after they get into their positions of power?
I'm not understanding the question that can you?
Well, when you said you would run it as a Dem, I would imagine that candidates would share ideas with each other and talk about stuff. And as you got frustrated talking about those ideas, did you feel that there was a resistance to it, or just a lot of like lip service that they were giving, that you sensed that clearly they weren't going to follow through on the things that were really important that you yourself stand for? And I think we all agree on.
I worked more with the local people, and we're all, and the locals are very much, yes, healthcare for all, yes, clean water, clean air, yes. But to me, it was the general leadership that I knew I would never get what I wanted from the party. I would never be able to, let's go all in on having our candidates be non-corporate candidates. So for the Green Party, it's very natural for us to be like, we don't accept corporate money, we don't accept corporate PAC money, we don't accept 501c3. I'm not 501c4s, 501c6s. Like, we don't accept that, and it's very, very natural for the Green Party to do that. And I'm trying to tell them, like, people don't know that, and that's what people want to hear. At least in my opinion, they want to hear that certain candidates are not taking corporate cash. They're not taking corporate PAC money, that they are for the power of the people, and they will not take this corporate money, because once you get that corporate money in, it doesn't matter if the elected official or candidate ignores them. It just, to me, ruins the power of the people. The power of the people can't flourish when we have big corporations just lining our politician pockets.
I wanted to toss a question to Kit, but while we're on that topic, that actually was my first question after I was going to ask Kit to share something or ask a question, but talking about campaign financing. So on that note, can candidates, fundraising is a big issue in the elections. You have to have money to run. You have to have money to get the word out, obviously, clearly. And the big money donations from corporations that grease the wheels are what help both the Democrats and the Republicans always get that kind of attention. So do you think that candidates can accept big donor contributions to help fund their campaigns without being beholden to them because of that need for that amount of cash to be able to run? Or what is the solution to funding a campaign without big money donations so that they don't influence a candidate?
Yeah, every candidate is different. So I'm sure, and even if you take money and that's reasonable, that's great, that's good, so I think every situation is different, every person is different. I personally would like to see everybody just all hands on deck, all the candidates just stop. You don't have
we all do, and sadly I don't know that it's going to happen. So this kind of leads to voters needing to recognize that if they want change, they're going to have to find the third-party candidates and contribute to those campaigns, because without the donations of the voters that are hoping to find the candidates that are actually going to follow through with what they're talking about, we're stuck with this duopoly. Kit, I know that this kind of touches upon some of the stuff that you wanted to talk about.
That's perfect. So thank you for the segue. So here's the thing, Anna, again, really impressed that you're running, especially for this key position in the Illinois State House. But Illinois has a long, sad history of being very draconian towards third parties. When we started off as Hard Lens Media, and then to some extent with Chicago Corner, when we interviewed Greens and Libertarians who were running for Cook County seats or state Illinois seats. Yeah, there was always the same thing that kept coming up again. 3 things, and that is, 1, for your campaign, what are you dealing with in regards towards making sure that your campaign gets on the ballot? Because Illinois has, again, the history of halting third parties from getting on the ballot. Number 2, what has been your interaction with the media, as well as dealing with any kind of roadblocks the Illinois system puts in place to stop third parties from getting on the ballot, and also what has been your interaction with the media? And then 3, what are you prepared to do to ensure that all your votes are counted for? Because, again, with Illinois and its history of progressives or independents or third parties running for office, votes and ballot boxes mysteriously disappear in our state.
Yeah, so Illinois does have one of the hardest election laws in the whole country for independents and third parties. And our friends in Illinois, we really need help. We really need, if we want democracy, if we want to just, again, are we just saying it or are we doing it? And to me, that Chicago saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, look at our workers' rights, look at our health care, look at our every daycare costs, look at, we've just got the minimum wage increase just for Illinois. So it's just like, to me, it's broken and we need to fix it. So we are getting our volunteers on the ground. I have lots of support for getting out the word. We go door to door canvassing and we talk to people of various political ideologies. And we do have a lot in common with several political ideologies. We take medical freedom very seriously. We're the Green Party, so we take the environment very seriously. And for the environment, not a lot of parties are really taking it as seriously as the Green Party. And so I think a lot of people who would not necessarily be green or vote green would want that. And they can have that on November 8th at the polling place. They can vote green as long as they get on the ballot. I'm still in petitioning mode because the non-established parties and independents are different than the established parties. So I'm still getting on the ballot, which I should not have a problem with. But yeah, we will be making sure that the votes count as much as we can to the full extent of the law. And then for the media, it's kind of sometimes funny to me because in interviews, like all about the status quo. And I ran last time as well in 2020. And I remember one of the interviews, they were very concerned about the ethics of Illinois. And that was at the time where Illinois was still going through some big changes in the legislature and their leadership. And so I find it very interesting that it's all about, we should do more. But then we don't move the status quo. We don't fix it, and it stays broken.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, do something. I'm sorry, Kit, is there a follow-up there?
Well, in regards to that, what are you doing to ensure that there is going to be some election integrity? Because in the past, especially during the 2020 election cycle, there were, again, some serious irregularities with how a lot of the votes were tallied up, especially for the Democratic primary. It also impacted third parties as well. Are you prepared for any situation in which you will call out the fact that, look, some of your voters or your votes did disappear? Because, again, every vote does count. And there was one point in the Illinois Green Party's history where it was recognized by the state government until after 2010, it did disappear. So are you prepared to ensure that? Because if you do successfully win this race, you'll be one of the first independent party candidates to be in the Illinois State House. And this is a phenomenal situation. But at the same time, are you prepared for any kind of legal actions to ensure that every vote is counted for within your race?
I think that's kind of like, Bernie didn't do that. So what are other third party candidates going to fight for getting screwed over by the powers that be?
And last year there were some objections to the candidates, and our legal Illinois Green Party legal team helped take care of that. And our petition team too. So it was all hands on deck for a while.
Kit, in prior history that you referenced there, was there any, so did third-party candidates in the past just not mount any kind of a fight from the experiences or the situations you just shared previously?
Well, from again, 2020 was a unique situation, especially for the Illinois Libertarian and Green Party, where the Illinois, I believe the Supreme Court, the Illinois State Supreme Court, did rule in favor that the third parties didn't have to get as much ballot signatures as normally they do because, again, of the pandemic. But however, again, as we've covered from the primary, at least the Democratic primary, and to some greater extent with the general elections, again, Illinois' history of votes disappearing, it is an issue because there's been a lack of election integrity. And the only reason why I'm pushing for this issue is because we've never seen a third-party candidate really win a significant seat in Illinois politics, and this would be unheard of. So the only reason why I'm pushing this narrative, pushing this question, is because it's to ensure that is there some way that you guys are building it, and if you don't have it, what can our viewers and what can your supporters do, or what can you inform us of what people can do if they want to help you out, what they can do to contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. If it gets to that point, we will most likely be reaching out and fundraising to pay for the resources that are necessary to overcome that battle.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good comment from the chat from Dominic from TrueDemocracyNow.org. Whether a candidate belongs to a political party or not should not matter if they are in constant communication with their constituents to know the needs of their communities. Very true. Let's talk a little bit about Anna's platform. I'm going to bring up the page from her website, and we shared ahead of the show some of the things that we wanted to get her feedback on. So let me actually bring your picture up a little bit higher so that we can see everybody. So tell us about your feelings on ranked choice voting as they affect representation, and why it's so important as this refers to your election reform platform.
Well, ranked choice voting alone in Illinois will not save us. For example, if we have ranked choice voting and we still have these hard election laws and these hard ballot access laws, we're not going to get on the ballot to have the ranked choice voting happen. So ranked choice voting is nice, and that'd be wonderful. But in Illinois, our friends really need help with getting third parties on the ballot in order to take advantage of that ranked choice voting. So otherwise, there's only going to be two still.
Fair enough. Daniel, I didn't get a chance to bring you into the conversation. Is there anything that you wanted to toss into the discussion?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I think we should always, it's sadly the way that third parties are dealt with, how people are brought up, how news exists in America. People have an inherent, like dismissive nature with third parties that we've experienced in our coverage in the past. Do you think that this year, well, I should actually say this way, what this year are you going to be doing differently than you've done before? And do you think that the reputational struggles of the Democrats are going to be more exploitable than in previous elections?
Well, I'm willing to work with people who are willing to work with me and can respect the 10 key values of the Green Party. Just from doing the running last year for this position, I was reached over ballot line. Unfortunately, I would have established the district if it wasn't a redistricting year. So I feel like I already got my foot in the door in regards to getting some voter awareness out there. But it's all going to be comes down to volunteer and canvassing and hitting those doors and having a nice one-to-one conversation with various people, and making sure that they know that I'm here, that the team is here, that we want certain things. We don't want the forever chemicals in our water anymore. We want to ban that. We want to make sure that we're doing what we can for the environment. Does that mean that maybe we ban styrofoam? So things that we can do that maybe seem so natural to like a child for innocent child. Like, should we continue doing styrofoam at a lot of fast food joints? No, because styrofoam doesn't go anywhere. We know styrofoam is a problem. So we still, as a civilization, just keep on using styrofoam, even though we know it's bad. So it's just to keep on plugging that message. And actually, recently I helped out with an annual township meeting in Lisle Township, and we got a question to be on the Lisle Township ballot. And that question is in regards to, should the state of Illinois and their political subdivisions set a priority date of January 1st, 2030 for a zero carbon emissions regulation, and for Illinois to set the same in commercial regulation. We hold all the cards. We hold the cards that make the laws that say yay or nay to what goes into our water, what goes into our air. Whether or not we protect it or not is up to the people that we put in office. And we can only choose what's on the ballot. So if there's only 2 to choose from on the ballot, that's what we get. So that's where the third parties, that's why it's so important to have third parties come in for people to get to know third parties, understand where they're coming from. We can be so much more if we just let it.
Yeah, agreed. Go to my other question here in regards to term limits. It should be fairly clear to prevent the corruption of career politicians. But why don't you? I'd like you to tell our audience why term limits are so important, as opposed to some voters thinking that they can prevent the momentum of a representative's efforts while serving if they are forced to step down after the 6 years proposed in your term limits platform.
My term limits, actually, a lot of people like my term limits because it's, once you're done serving, like for example, 2-year seats, you get 3 consecutive terms, a maximum. For 3-year seats, it's a maximum of 3 consecutive years. 4-year seats, maximum of 2 consecutive years, and 6 years is a maximum of 2 consecutive years. But that's only consecutive. So you can take a term off and come back. You can take a little time off for yourself to be with your family, your friends, reconnect with the communities as not in that role. I think that, to me, is really important, because if you keep on plugging along and if you have like a 20 or 30-year career without taking a nice break, you might get in a little, a little burnt out, so that way it allows the elected official to feel like you can take some time off and then just run again. It's just a consecutive term limit maximum. You just take a term off and you come right back.
Fair enough. Kit or Daniel, anything you want to follow up on with that?
In regards to this, look, we know that there's a lot of politicians that want to ensure that there are continuation of term limits. There's always going to be that pushback, especially from the Democratic Party, because hypothetically, there is a chance you can win your seat and be the first Green Party candidate or politician in the state of Illinois, which is, again, very historic, which is something I want to see more of. However, there is that concern of any kind of legislation proposal that you are pushing forward on, it will get pushed back from both Democrats and Republicans who are in the House. Are you at all prepared to do anything, or at least build up some kind of coalition with people? Because obviously Democrats and Republicans don't support third parties, but with people, regular constituents in the state of Illinois, to actually get these initiatives pushed forward that you're fighting for?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I like to work with people and have them, understand why the environment is so important. People have children and grandchildren, and understand that this is a concept of a borrowed earth. This isn't ours to take. It's not ours to ruin. It's not ours to fill up plastic in the ocean. So I think hitting home with what we can do with regards to, setting zero carbon emissions, looking at zero waste manufacturing and giving grants to them. I think these are very understandable items that I'm willing to work with people on.
I like to involve our viewers in the live chat with some of the concerns and questions that they have. Now, I'm not sure how well, maybe you would have some power in introducing something like this, but Ilhanar asks, also running on establishing a internet municipality is a surefire way to get people on your side, more city jobs. Chattanooga, Tennessee comes in under $20 of their competitors' prices and hires more people to work at their call centers. He goes on to say, or they go on to say, Chicago has a population of 8.9 million. That's a lot of people overpaying for internet access just to work. Is that something that state representatives could introduce legislation for, to get the state or cities to start looking at the internet as a municipal public utility?
Possibly. I would definitely look more into that. I believe that the public utilities should be public, and they should be more employee owned, like in a co-op. These are public utilities. They have the word public in front of it. So we should be able to have the marketplace shift and be able to take care of the power of the people, and making sure that the people in this government system have their way, have their say, and have a voice, and have that voice be heard.
Yeah. Seems the public utilities had more of a voice with representatives like Michael Madigan, and they're kind of above reproach, even though we've got the Citizens Utility Board and them running the utilities running rampant with their higher rate increases. But that's for another conversation. But I do think that it's interesting, and I think it's a legitimate point, that I think that the internet really needs to be looked at as a public utility, established as a public utility. It's necessary to run a business the same way you'd need a telephone, which was a public utility in the past. And I think that if our elected representatives can make a way to push for that, you'd have a lot of happy voters. Let's go back into some of the stuff we talked about in advance regarding your platform as it relates to budget taxation and education funding reform. You're big on LaSalle Street tax. Let's talk about why that makes sense. And can you tell us how you would propose reversing so much of the opposition there seems to be by those big business influences that don't want to pay a penny per transaction for the privilege of doing business on LaSalle Street and using the commons and all the other resources that taxation falls on the rest of our shoulders to support?
Well, once in a while, the LaSalle Street tax does get into the legislature. It's known as the financial transaction tax. So we'll see it from time to time. Maybe one or two people will actually be a sponsor, co-sponsor on it. So it is something that is possible, and it has been brought up to the legislators as well, for them to review and for them to vote, for them to get through the system to be able to vote on it. We are actually doing a post-COVID research on this, just because what are they doing? What is the biggest pushback for the LaSalle Street tax was all those businesses would leave and we would lose that business. Well, with COVID, we know that a lot of people are not going to the office, and we know that they're still keeping their that LaSalle Street is still fine, that we know of. So to me, sometimes it's where's the servers at. So if we can maybe look at getting some business down south and some warehouses, and be able to help facilitate, more of what the needs are, and try to offset that cost in a different way, that is something that is possible. But it is a very small percentage on something that doesn't even have a sales tax right now. And if we were to do that, the state of Illinois would get $12 billion in revenue. That's a lot of money.
We wouldn't have to keep begging the mayor locally to open up the TIF funds.
Exactly.
Kit or Daniel, anything you want to add to that?
I think pretty much the question was answered. But the only thing I will say to this is that there is, at least with Illinois, with the Democratic machine, even though Michael Madigan no longer has a role to play in this election, or at least while he's no longer the Speaker.
At least public facing.
At least the public face. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. There's always that concern of the growing reach of the Democratic machine. Let's say you are able to successfully become, the first Green Party candidate to become in the state of Illinois. What are you prepared to do to build the infrastructure to help out potentially other third parties, Green Party, Libertarians included, or independents, to actually change the face of Illinois politics? Because this is something unheard of, and this would be a pioneer move in electoral politics, especially for our state.
This could be a very historical race, that's for sure. I would work with others, especially with those that wanted equal ballot access. That was brought up to the legislators recently. Not this time around, I don't think, but it has been there from time to time. We've had the equal ballot access being introduced in the legislature. And again, it was up to the legislators to be able to put that through the process and vote on it. And it didn't make it very far. So we'll be willing to do that again and work with the people who's willing to work with us and try to convince them that this is for democracy. This isn't not a them versus us thing. This is all of us. This is our world. This is our government. These are our streets. These are our schools, and we all need to take care of them.
Okay.
Agreed. From the live chat, Ilhan, our austerity for everyone but billionaires and multimillionaires. Kathy Powers shares, oh no, LaSalle Street needs to refurbish with TIF funds. Yeah, we were reporting on a story a few weeks ago that there's a lot of empty real estate down on LaSalle Street, and they want the city to start opening up the TIF funds, not to help underdeveloped areas, but to help LaSalle Street, help bring more retail and business into that corridor, because Anna, they just don't have enough money down there, especially when they resist this transaction tax we're always talking about.
Well, I think it's a post-COVID world too, because you don't have those people going to lunch and going to get their coffee. They are remote workers, so it's a little bit of a different world than that we live in than 2 years ago, because we don't have that big flux of people going downtown anymore. So the market will shift.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I think a lot of big businesses on LaSalle Street also chose to move elsewhere, is what was in the reporting, because they chose to move elsewhere, and there's a lot of empty real estate down there now, is why those that are still there want TIF funds to help redevelop the area. It wasn't as much about how COVID was affecting the financial sector down there, or that business landscape. It was banks moving to other locations. Anyway, let's move on to talking about your education policy. Let me bring up the screen here. Mm-hmm. So we hear a lot about standardized tests, standardized testing. What are standardized tests, and why are they such a problem?
Well, there's one in particular that I'm not in favor of, and I believe it's called the Illinois Assessment Readiness. I'm in a public school system, so any parent who is in the public school system and kind of pays and knows about all the acronyms. There's so many acronyms out
I can't keep track. That's why I thought I'd let you explain it, since you seem to know a whole lot about it.
I was on the phone call with my mom, and she's naming some subjects. I'm like, they don't teach that anymore, Mom. They teach SEL and this and that, and they have acronyms. And so one of the acronyms is IAR, and they recently did that at my the children's school in early April. And so actually the kids are opted out / refused, whatever the correct wording is for them. So my children do not get the IAR test. They get to go read a book instead, or go do another activity in a different room. So with that test, I believe it was an hour and a half, 3 days a week for 2 weeks for kids. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So as soon as I found out that you can opt out of it and refuse it, I'm like, I'm on that train. The kids get enough screen time, whether or not I like it. And I know one of the teachers at the school said in writing that they normally get 2 to 3 hours of screen time a day, and my doctor said, "Oh, the max is 2." So it's interesting that what I've learned in the public education system since my children have been there. I'm not the same mom that I was when I dropped my kids off in kindergarten. That's for sure.
Your platform on the website also talks about ending school vouchers and other privatization schemes in education, and we've seen those, especially in Chicago. I remember Rahm Emanuel was all for that. Your policy platform on the website claims vouchers curtail the very essence of the public school system. So how would you argue against school vouchers when some parents say that they want that choice?
They want that choice because they might not feel like the school district is good enough. But if we have equal education, the American equal opportunity that we should all be afforded, we all have the same dollars going into each school, and we would have an equal education. Education should not depend on the zip code that you're born into.
Yes. I think that's a very, very clear solution so many people overlook because of the disparity between communities and neighborhoods all across the city and the state. You live in a certain community that isn't getting the right kind of financing or the right kind of investment into the communities and the school system. Kids aren't getting a good education, and those in those neighborhoods want the vouchers to send their kids to other schools. Why not demand that all schools are more equal for all kids in all neighborhoods everywhere? That's a more free and equitable society where the kids are all going to benefit, and ultimately society is going to benefit. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the point that people miss out on, is that all schools should be getting the same kind of funding and financing to make it the best educational experience for their students everywhere.
Everywhere, yes. And that's one of the main reasons why I keep on pushing the LaSalle Street tax, is because we earn $12 billion. We can take $5 billion of that and fully fund PK through 12. Fully fund it. And then that way, to me, when I was being taught politics, is we pull our money together. We give the people, what the infrastructure that they need, including the education, and we all benefit from it. And so, to me, for the LaSalle Street tax, we can invest in education, and not only will we all win, but also we can give LaSalle Street better qualified employees. We can make sure that they are more educated and more diverse background. We can give them. And in a matter in just a few years, these kids grow up fast. We can really have a turnaround quickly. We can give them better employees. We can give them safer streets, because if more people are educated and more people have resources, and if they, whether it's their own business or employed somewhere else, but they would have the resources to give back to the community. And that's where we would see the big difference at. And so that's one of the big reasons why I keep on pushing the LaSalle Street tax, besides it's a small amount, on a big volume of transactions. But we can fully fund this education. And then not only that, but the bonus is we can try to start reducing the property taxes from that as well. Because if we fully fund it with state funds, that's less that the property taxpayers have to pay.
I just can't get over this comment in the live chat from Ilhanner. Amazon has a high school course in LA County to teach kids how to work at Amazon.
Oh, so basically they're telling the kids, hey, when there's a big tornado coming your way, just stay in the warehouse and management will let you leave, and then you get hit by a tornado. So there we go. That's awesome. Yeah.
Even Jake and Elle would wonder what that's all about.
But that's crazy, though, to think about, that we're not teaching, be an electrician, a really well-paying job,
Right.
plumbers, really well-paying job. The fastest-growing job in America is windmill repair technician. I don't see us doing that.
You said window repair technician?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's a function of that there weren't that many windmills that long ago, and now they're building them, and every windmill needs a repair technician every couple months.
Makes sense.
Good paying job. You get paid $80,000 a year. No one talks about that.
All right, moving on with our conversation with Anna on her platform. Let's go to energy policy. Add this to the conversation. How do you reform? How do you propose we reform the oil, coal, and nuclear power interests in Illinois to build a renewable energy infrastructure integrating solar power and wind farms like we see all across rural Indiana? How many of us have driven through Indiana and seen those wind mills, wind farms, and thought, why aren't we harvesting power in Illinois the way that Indiana seems to have it figured out?
Well, I was not very pleased when the CEJA legislation gave ComEd and Exelon $694 million of our tax-paying funds. I was not happy at all about that, especially it was for their nuclear power plants to help them get out of that. So not very happy about, I would not have voted on that because we deserve better and we deserve not to give them millions of dollars. We need that for our renewable energy. We need that for our future energy. That was our tax-paying dollars. So I would love for us to divest from fossil fuels. Don't think it's a very good investment going forward. So I would like for us to go ahead and divest from fossil fuels. And yes, renewable energy is not always the best. You still have to mine for resources. You still have some inhumane items. So it is not always just glitter and all glitter and yay for renewable energy and let's get it up there. There are some serious issues that still need to be dealt with on that. I'm not going to hide from that fact. But to me, it's cheaper and easier than putting a traditional uranium water-based nuclear plant up. These are being decommissioned. These have seen their life. And for me, why I was anti-nuclear in my younger years was because the waste would last for 100,000 years as being radioactive. And I can never, ever, ever get past any justification for why we should have this resource around for 100,000 years. It's ridiculous. There's no reason why we had to make that. There's no reason why we have to keep on doing it. And there's no reason why we have to have it in our future energy. So to me, to have these, talking about nuclear, the traditional water-based uranium nuclear power plants should never have been talked about in a future energy plan.
I mean, it's such a complicated issue because it just seems like such an uphill battle when you've got monopolies in Illinois like ComEd or People's Gas. We need money for more nuclear power plants. So again, maybe it's too complicated to even try to unwrap here, but it seems like reforming the thinking in Springfield or, by our representatives in wherever they're serving to insist, how do we get these big power monopolies to reform their practices? I guess I just don't know how or where. I mean, you're going to need a lot of representatives behind it, to really push that, to bring people together to realize we can't keep doing things the same way.
We need to vote people in, and we need to get people running as third parties and vote them in. And it's not terribly too late. Petitioning just started April 13th, and the last day for filing is July 11th. And so if there are people out there who are interested in running as a state representative, contact me, and I'll be more than happy to help facilitate that process. It is not too late to get on the ballot.
Ilhanar brings up a good point in the chat. Arizona could be the leader in solar, but oil and gas shut John McCain down in the 90s, and that's the influence of, these big monopolies that have all this money to shut down what an elected representative might be proposing or supporting. So but yeah, you're right. We got to replace the people who aren't in sync with the things we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
So going on to crime and Kit and Daniel, anything you want? I don't want to dominate with the questions, but if there's anything you guys want to also kind of add to the conversation on these points.
I got one question. It may be my last because my phone is about to die and I may have to drop out. I apologize, but So where is your path? How do you see Illinois gaining? Well, first of all, moving away from coal, fossil fuels. By the way, a little known fact: coal is the most radioactive source of energy that we currently use. Not a lot of people know that. And where do you see Illinois going and creating energy? Because I worry that it's going to take us a long time for people to finally go, yeah, having solar panels everywhere kind of makes sense. We can just do that. I mean, literally, if we just, I think I read a stat somewhere that if we just made a second layer of all the parking lots in the city and just cover them with solar panels, that's most of the energy we need right there. How do you see that happening? Do you see nuclear as worse than coal, oil, because of its longevity, or how do you tier that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I do see it as like a continuum timeline of how bad is it? Is it 100,000 year bad? Is it 100-year bad? Like most coal stuff is. So, and then also we're researching the thorium salt molten reactors as well, because that has you can bury that for 400 years according to the research that we're looking into. So how bad is it's never going to be exactly good, right? So even like windmills, the blades still have to be, they only have like a useful life of so long, and then afterwards they can't be recycled. So and I teach these children, the one that's coming in behind me, that things never go away. Even if we put it in the recycling bin, there's probably like a 9% chance it's actually going to be recycled. And they're even recycling facilities, they're not always the best. And so we're never going to get that, 100% best efforts for energy. But what we can do is get the cheapest and the easiest energy sources out there and start plugging it along. Get it as a law. Get it in the market. Let's get these people in grants to learn it. Let's get our education system to teach it. So there is so much more than if we were just to pull back the facade, and if we were just to not vote for corporate or corporate PAC candidates. If we said, let's find somebody else to run instead of them, I think we can pull back more of this facade and start working on these real issues, because I don't want to seem like the crazy person holding the sign that says the end is near, but that's sometimes how I feel. But even if it's not near, we have plenty of time. Wouldn't we want to take care of it? Wouldn't we want to just improve our make sure our earth, our very survival is taken care of, instead of just buying more plastic bottles?
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I gotta run. I'm really my battery's about to die, but I really like that answer. I think so far what I've heard from you is very well thought through on your issues. You really have a grasp on what you're trying to do, and I support that in any candidate. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Daniel.
I also want to add out, even though Daniel is leaving the studio, that again, we started Chicago Corner just like we started Heartlands Media together, and Chicago Corner used to be a segment for Heartlands Media, and now here it is. Its own YouTube channel, and we're happy to have you, Anna, for our 100th live stream for this great YouTube channel. So there we go. I think we should get back on point. So let's keep on.
A couple more points. We were also wanted to talk about crime and criminal justice. We're every week we're screaming about this reactive justice as opposed to proactive solutions. And so with your crime and criminal justice platform, tell us where you see the problems with the current system and how better living wages, investment, and mental illness treatment, which is related to the next topic of healthcare, have to be integrated, because the solution is not throwing more money at law enforcement and the police. And that's the only solution, it seems, our elected representatives are engaging in. It's red meat to the masses. It's a sense of security when it's not. If you don't nip things in the bud and give people opportunities, deal with mental health issues, deal with policies that prevent crime with opportunity and investment in communities, this will affect crime stats. So share a little bit with us about your philosophies on that, your platform on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a big prison problem, just like we do with big pharma and big insurance and big this and big that. It's also a big prison problem, and we're not taking care of the underlying root of the problem, which is the communities. Communities need to be thriving. They need economic resources. The people should be able to go in their communities and be able to be unique, and be able to bring their resources to the communities rather than just going to a cubicle job and pushing paper all day. They should be able to thrive in their local communities. They shouldn't need a reason to steal. They should be able to be secure in their surroundings and walk down the street safely. So I think our big prison problem is also we have the whole system around it, but it's also because we're not taking care of our local communities.
Absolutely. Kit, any thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is, Illinois, again, let's talk about criminal justice, right? And that's the subject of the point. In 2017, early 2018, Daniel Upker and I, we covered the Exoneration Project, where 16 Black men were exonerated for crimes they didn't commit. And there needs to be justice for the state of Illinois, especially for a lot of people that are behind bars for some, in the most shocking reasons, in cases for crimes they didn't commit. Are you prepared to be at least one of the leading voices to ensure that there is justice for both the men and women that are behind bars, especially with this ridiculous war on drugs?
Absolutely. And for all genders as well. We're very gender fluid, and so it's not just the men and women, it's for all genders. Absolutely. We really need to take care of the problems that happened in the past, make sure that they don't happen again. And make sure that if you do commit a crime, yes, you should be held to what your sentencing is. But that's not every case. And then sometimes I notice that do you have enough resources for a lawyer or not? So I do think that there is a lot that could happen in this area. I'll be more than happy to do what I can.
Thank you.
Going to healthcare. Look, I think we're all going to drop dead screaming this from the rooftops over and over and over again, especially during a 2-year pandemic, the importance of Medicare for all, healthcare for all, that our elected representatives still deny us because of the influence of insurance companies and big pharma. Look, I think we know what your healthcare policy is. It's on your website. Anybody that's a green or involved in progressive politics has the same stance, but I'm just going to let you talk about your healthcare policies, your platform.
Yes, thank you. And that's where I met you and Kit and Daniel. We met at the March for Medicare for All March last July, and that was a great event. So I would actually prefer a national healthcare system, but I would compromise on an improved and expanded Medicare for all. So I basically say healthcare for all. And like you said, we all kind of see that with COVID, and even pre-COVID, lots of bankruptcies were happening because people had to choose their healthcare over their house. Why? Why do we need to do that? This is actually a $1.2 trillion problem, and with a little slash of the military budget, we'll be able to get this money and be able to ensure everybody has healthcare. And it also helps small businesses grow, and would help within local economies, because you wouldn't have to worry about that. You would be able to have you taken care of, your family taken care of. It would be one less stressor on your family, on you and your family. And for the business owners, it's so important. So important to have that healthcare coverage for your employees, for yourself, and it's such a big cost. So if we were to take away that expense and be able to cover it nationwide for $1.2 trillion, I think the federal legislation, they should be able to do that, for all of us, especially with COVID. I can't imagine getting a COVID bill right now. Luckily, thankfully, we haven't yet, but I know people who have, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I won't even spend more time on healthcare because I think it's like everybody's in agreement on have to be serious reforms, and it is a right. And if we want our country to survive and move forward, we need to start taking care of each other, taking care of ourselves, and demanding from our representatives that they stop serving the interests of the vampires taking advantage of people's healthcare situations. Last point you also have equal rights policy talked about on your website, which you mentioned a moment ago. As we were talking about, I forgot which other topic, but an inclusive policy platform. But I want an equal rights, but I want to go to gun laws because this is an interesting topic. Your platform states, even though I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment as a strict constitutionalist, I do believe reasonable solutions could be enacted that can produce significant differences. Solutions include registration of guns and sellers reinstating the 1968 definition of a gun dealer, banning sales at gun shows, and a zero-tolerance policy on those who intentionally or knowingly sold guns to minors or those who did not have a FOID card. So in response to that, I guess this is about what solutions can affect that also respect the rights afforded by the Second Amendment to gun owners, because obviously illegal guns are a big problem with our crime issue, but people have as much right to defend and protect themselves with legally registered guns. I'm not talking about assault weapons. I don't think it's wrong for someone to have a rifle or have a handgun if they're trained, registered, and licensed, and there's been the proper background checks applied to them. So how do you convince people, though, that even would argue against those issues to make sure that those who are purchasing and owning guns are properly vetted to prevent potential crimes or tragedies?
I have this conversation all the time with the voters in my district. At least at one door during canvassing, I will get this question. And to them, they actually like my answers because for to be a gun dealer, the old law in 1968 that was overturned in 1986 was 4. So if you sold more than 4 guns, you had to register as a gun dealer. I would even let that go double, maybe 6 or something. I can go a little bit higher than that, like as a compromise if that's what's needed, but probably not more than double, because if you're selling more than 8, you could be a gun dealer. But it's not bad, but we need to know that you're dealing guns. If you're dealing so many guns a year. Right now, I believe it's just not more than your principal income. So if Jeff Bezos wanted to sell guns, he can just sell it as long as it's not more than his principal income. So I think that kind of people like, because it's not 0, but it's not a lot. It's a definite number. 4. No, if you sell more than 4, just register as a gun dealer. Just fill out the paperwork and application. That's it. And another one is the banning of gun sales at the gun shows, because it didn't always used to be like that. Yeah. You had to actually go to their principal place of business to take care of the business. So I think if we were to do it if we were to ban gun sales at gun shows, that would help out a lot. And actually, Jerry, I have one more thing to add to that website that we've been looking at lately, and I'm happy to announce it on your show as well. But if you're doing gun manufacturing, you should also fill out an application and be registered as well. And that would also include I think they're the scanners that make the ghost guns. So if you are manufacturing a weapon, you have to fill out the application to be a manufacturer.
Fair enough. All right. So back to our live chat. Dominic Palella of True Democracy Now! How timely. Policies are derived from laws by the people we elect to office. If we cannot have some controlling influence on their decisions, we cannot influence any policy they make. Dominic runs a website called TrueDemocracyNow.org, and he has proposed a pledge that we share with candidates, or we are going to share with candidates that we have on the show, just to kind of discuss. I mean, I'm not expecting you to commit to this, because there are certainly, fluid issues in regards to committing to certain times and dates and stuff. But I want to share what Dominic proposes that we ask all candidates their thoughts on. And this is his pledge to candidates. It should go to all candidates of all parties. On my honor, I pledge to represent the majority interests of my constituents as defined herein. On my government website, I will inform my constituents of all legislation or other measures available for my voting decisions. I will provide a summary of the pros and cons for each and a link to their content on my website. In addition, I will hold at least 12 town hall meetings with constituents each year of my employment as their public servant to discuss legislation that they are concerned about. And I understand that that's certainly something that's fluid depending on schedules, but I think the spirit of what he's proposing is certainly understood as far as maintaining contact with constituents. Constituents who are at least 18 years of age and legal residents of my voting district may register with my office to participate in polling, to express their opinions on legislation and other matters I can vote on as their representative. Proof of residence and a current voter or state photo ID may be submitted in person or via the internet to be verified to participate in polling for decisions I can make for them. For added security, constituents must provide a 4-digit PIN when voting in polls. Constituents who participate in polling may visit my office, call my office, or go online to take part in polling. When participants in polling, their voter or state ID registered with my office will be displayed along with their time their vote was recorded on my website. Polling results for each of my voting decisions will be updated daily and displayed online before I cast any vote. Polling participants may vote one time in each poll for or against a bill or other measure available for my voting decision. After any number of my constituents cast their votes, I will make a decision based on what I think best represents their interests. If my decision is contrary to a majority of my constituents voting in the poll, I will present a written and audiovisual explanation for voting against their majority opinion on my website. However, if at least 66 and 2.3 of my polling constituents want me to vote for or against legislation, I will vote according to their wishes. It seems like all candidates would want to embrace that in the spirit of transparency and really letting their constituents know they're on their side. And while I'm not going to expect anybody to commit to this, I do want to talk about some of the many. Obviously, it's not a really long pledge, but a lot of the points that I think Dominic fairly brings up on his website to hold our candidates accountable to not just talking the talk, but walking the walk when they're in there. So I'd just like to open it up to conversation, your thoughts on this and what we can fairly expect from candidates that are asking for our votes, that claim that they're going to represent our interests, and why more shouldn't be held accountable, asked to commit to a pledge like this.
I do like that pledge, and I think that accountability and transparency part is really key and vital. And I like being the pro and the con, because there's pros and cons to everything. And so I like it, like put it on the website. So everybody has, not everybody has access to it, but most people have access to it, or you can hopefully go to a library to get access to it. But I do believe that accountability, that transparency, if we understood more about what is the pro and what is the con, I think that can also help with the dialogue conversation as well.
Fair enough. I'm glad that you were willing to comment on that. And yeah, I mean, this is something that you're the first person we've put this forward to. And I've talked with Dominic a couple times. He's a friend of the show and regular contributor to the chat. And he's got this great website that is TrueDemocracyNow.org. That is about that is about all of these issues we're constantly talking about, with solutions that he proposes and conversations with those or policies or platforms or proposals to help make our representative government more representative, if that makes sense. So, Anna, this was a great conversation. Kit, do you want to add anything before we come to our show close?
Yeah. So, Anna, we've covered a lot, especially myself as Hard Lens Media. The first people we've interviewed were libertarians and Greens. We even covered the Illinois governor's debate as well for 2018. And the thing is, there needs to be an ongoing communication with third parties. And we say Illinois Green Party, the one thing is, the media and the Democratic and Republican parties have done their job in really smearing and dismissing third parties. No matter how this election turns out, what are you prepared to do to really continue to build the Illinois Green Party? Because at one point, again, in 2010, it was recognized by the state of Illinois as a real force to be reckoned with, as a legitimate party, and then it lost it. Are you prepared to be on independent media and also to continue to do outreach? What are you prepared to do to build infrastructure? Is there going to be an ongoing plan? Because right now, there's a lot of people, voters out there, that just feel politically homeless and really don't trust the two-party system. And again, with what average people see, not here on the internet, but what average people see on the media is, well, third parties are irrelevant. Are you going to help lead that infrastructure?
Yes, absolutely. We're building teams throughout Illinois, so you might not see big show, but there's lots of little shows going on. So we're building teams. We're making sure that the coalitions are well versed and well heard as well. So there is a lot of synergy. And I've been an activist for over 20 years now. So this is the most I've seen as a political uprising, if you will. Like there are people who are very dissatisfied with both parties, and I see that on the campaign trail all the time. I literally like 2 to 3 houses at least on a day going out. They will ask me right away. The first question that they will ask me when I get to that door, before I even have one word to say, they say, Democrat or Republican? And then when I say neither, they're like, oh, okay, let's talk, So I see it that they are, like, one guy even put his arms like, Democrat or Republican. I'm like, neither. And he's like, oh, okay, then come talk to me. And it was just like, I'm like, oh, thank goodness I'm not a Democrat. It's hard out there. So, yeah, and if people vote with their heart, and if they vote with their conscience, there will never be a wasted vote. I think I think people get in this on, wheelhouse or kind of in the hamster wheel. Keep on doing it, kind of keep on doing it. And do you really have to keep on doing it? Because to me, it's broken and we need to fix it.
I can't tell you how pleased I am that you've made this commitment of accountability to the voters whose votes you are seeking, because...
Do you know what a blood oath is, Mr. Ness?
Yes.
Good, because you just took one.
And that's the Chicago way.
That is the Chicago way. So thank you so much for being on our show. And more importantly, please share this video with your social media, with your colleagues in the Illinois Green Party. There is a lot of suppression going out there, but let your colleagues know in the Illinois Greens and even in Illinois Libertarians, if they want to be on our show for Chicago Corner, because let's face it, 2022 and 2023 are going to be key election years for our state. There's, of course, the state elections with midterms, and of course, going into 2023, there's the municipal elections. So no matter what happens, third parties, if you are serious, come on to Chicago Corner and actually step up. That's all I have. Step up.
And as I stated at the top of the show, this is our first and what will hopefully be an ongoing series, not just statewide, but citywide, when we start vetting mayoral candidates here in Chicago who are going to be running against Lori Lightfoot. Although we're not going to be covering a mayoral candidate next Friday, or this Friday, we will have on Toneel Jackson, who is going to be running as a Green candidate for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And we hope to have a really robust conversation with Toneel regarding her platforms and her views as a Green Party candidate, trying to change things for the better for the voters whose support that she's seeking. Again, Anna, thanks for coming on again tonight. So people can visit Anna's website. It is voteforanna.org, voteforanna.org. Please visit there, support Anna. We hope to have you back in the future, Anna, as we follow your campaign, getting on the ballot, and hopefully onward to success representing the needs, the desperate needs of the people here in Illinois and Chicago.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on. And I'm so honored this was your 100th episode. That's so
well,
special.
my 100th live stream. We've been here longer, but yeah, there you go. Vote for Anna.org. Thank you. So to the rest of my viewers, everyone out there, thanks again for joining us tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed the conversation this evening. As always, we will be back on Friday. Please like, subscribe, and share below. And also, please share this video now that it's going to be archived on the website so other people can discover Anna, her platform, her policies, and why we really need to embrace, seek out, and support third-party candidates all across the city and the state. Until we meet again on Friday, please watch out for each other. Take care, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Thanks to everybody. Be safe. Cheers.